Look at this. Yum.
In a world where fame can build you up just as fast as it can tear you apart, one girl found her voice, not through noise, but through quiet strength. Hailee Steinfeld was never meant to be ordinary. At just 13, she stood before Hollywood's harshest critics and left them speechless with true grit. But behind the applause was a teenager still figuring out who she was. A girl caught between scripts and songs, cameras and headlines, dreams and doubt. She was too young for the pressure, too talented to fade away, and too human to escape heartbreak. Through the years, she would lose herself in fame, only to rise again through her own music, singing not about perfection, but survival. This is not just the story of a star. It's the story of a girl who learned that her truest role wasn't written by anyone else. It was sung from her heart. Hailee Steinfeld was born on December 11, 1996, in Tarzana, Los Angeles, the city of stars. But her world wasn't made of red carpets or glitter. Her father, Peter, was a fitness trainer, strict but loving. Her mother, Cherie, half Filipino, half African-American, filled their home with warmth and discipline. It was a family that believed in hard work, humility, and the quiet pursuit of purpose. Hailee grew up in a mixed heritage household, surrounded by stories and songs from different cultures. She was fascinated by how emotion could travel through art, how a single look or a single note could change everything. Even as a child, she loved the camera, performing for anyone who would watch. Yet offstage, she was shy, thoughtful, and often unsure where she truly fit. At school, that difference made her a target. She was bullied for chasing a dream too big for someone her age. When the words became too cruel, her parents made a difficult choice: to pull her out and teach her at home. It wasn't just a change in education, it was a lifeline. At home she could breathe. She studied acting with intensity, learning scripts by heart, recording herself over and over again. Her older brother Griffin became her first audience, and her biggest fan. Hailee's world was small but full of belief. In those quiet years, away from the spotlight, away from the cruelty, she built the confidence that Hollywood would one day test. Before the fame, before the songs, before the world knew her name, there was just a young girl in a quiet Los Angeles room, learning how to dream out loud. Hailee's dream didn't begin with fame. It began with rejection. Before True Grit, there were dozens of auditions that went nowhere. Casting directors told her she was too young, too soft, too unknown. But every no only sharpened her resolve. Her parents drove her across Los Angeles for auditions that lasted mere minutes. She'd sit in waiting rooms with hundreds of other girls, some older, some louder, and whisper to herself, "Just be honest." It wasn't confidence that kept her going. It was faith. Then, in 2010, everything changed. She auditioned for the Coen brothers' remake of True Grit, a film that demanded not just talent, but courage. Hailee was only 13. She walked into that room with a voice trembling between fear and conviction, and left behind a silence that made even the directors pause. When the film premiered, Hollywood stopped to listen. Her performance as Mattie Ross, fearless, mature beyond her years, earned her an Academy Award nomination for Best Supporting Actress. At 13, she wasn't just acting. She was commanding the screen. But with praise came a new kind of pressure. Reporters called her a prodigy. Magazines called her the next big thing. And yet, behind the flashbulbs, Hailee was still a teenager trying to figure out who she wanted to be. Her friends were at school dances. She was on red carpets. Her classmates were growing up. She was growing famous. Fame had arrived early, and like most gifts that come too soon, it carried a cost she hadn't yet learned to count. After True Grit, Hailee Steinfeld became Hollywood's newest revelation, a name that promised the future. But she didn't want to be remembered as just a child star. She wanted to evolve, to experiment, to prove that lightning could strike twice. Over the next few years, she chose roles that defied easy labels. From Ender's Game to Romeo and Juliet, she explored strength wrapped in vulnerability. But it was Pitch Perfect 2 that changed everything, not only for her career, but for her voice. For the first time, Hailee wasn't just acting. She was singing. Her song Flashlight lit a spark she didn't expect. Music gave her freedom. In 2015, she signed her first record deal and released Love Myself, an anthem of confidence and self-worth that resonated across the world. It wasn't about ego. It was about empowerment. It was Hailee's way of telling her fans, "You are enough, even when the world tells you otherwise." Hollywood began to see her not as an actress who could sing, but as a full-blown artist. With every release, Starving, Most Girls, Let Me Go, she crafted a new image. Independent, grounded and real. Red carpets, award shows, Met Gala appearances, she moved through fame with elegance, her calmness standing out amid the chaos of celebrity life. She became a symbol for a new generation, proof that you could shine without breaking. But behind the poise, Hailee was still searching for balance. Between music and movies, between the version the world adored and the person she was still discovering. Because as her star rose higher, the spotlight grew hotter, and every bright light casts a shadow. Every rise comes with its reckoning. For Hailee, fame was no longer a dream. It was a mirror that showed everything, even the cracks. The world that once praised her innocence began to dissect her every move. Paparazzi followed her through airports. Headlines speculated about her love life, and every photo became a story waiting to explode. Rumors linked her to pop stars like Justin Bieber and Niall Horan. Stories twisted, exaggerated, and recycled by tabloids hungry for drama. But what the public didn't see were the quiet nights after the chaos, the way she turned off her phone, the silence she needed to survive. Behind the camera flashes, there were disappointments too. Projects she believed in failed to connect. Songs that once soared up charts started to fade faster. Fans still adored her, but the industry, ruthless and restless, began to move on to the next new face. In interviews, her smile stayed, but the light dimmed behind it. The same confidence that had once inspired millions was replaced by self-doubt and exhaustion. She later admitted, "I felt like I was losing control of my own story." The more she tried to please everyone, labels, directors, fans, the more she drifted from herself. And somewhere between award shows and social media storms, Hailee Steinfeld, the girl who once sang about loving herself, had to face the hardest question of all. Who was she when the applause stopped? When the noise became too loud, Hailee did the hardest thing a young star can do. She stepped back. No scandals, no announcements, no drama. Just silence. But silence can be powerful. It can be a place to fall apart or to rebuild. For Hailee, it became both. In that stillness, she reconnected with her craft. She chose roles that spoke to her soul rather than her fame. And in 2019, she found a new voice. Not through pop hits or red carpets, but through the haunting poetry of Emily Dickinson. The Apple TV Plus series, Dickinson became her rebirth. Hailee didn't just play the poet, she embodied her. A woman torn between art and expectation, between being seen and being understood. It was, in many ways, the reflection of Hailee's own journey. Critics called it her best work since True Grit. Audiences rediscovered her depth, her humor, her pain, her truth. And with it came something more precious than applause. Peace. Then came the music. Softer, wiser, more vulnerable. Her EP Half-Written Story wasn't about perfection. It was about healing. Each lyric felt like a page from her diary. A reminder that she didn't need to scream to be heard anymore. She had learned that reinvention isn't about becoming someone new. It's about remembering who you were before the world told you who to be. And as Hailee stood before the microphone again, no spotlight, no cameras, just her and the music, she finally sang, for herself. Hailee Steinfeld's legacy isn't built on controversy or spectacle. It's built on quiet excellence. In an era where fame often burns faster than it shines, she's managed to stay, not by chasing trends, but by creating her own rhythm. From her Oscar-nominated debut to her commanding lead in Dickinson, Hailee proved that range isn't about age. It's about authenticity. She became a role model for young artists who wanted to do it all without losing themselves in the process. Her songs, Love Myself, Starving, Most Girls, became modern anthems for self-worth and individuality. They weren't just pop hits. They were reminders that confidence can coexist with kindness, and that strength doesn't always need to shout. Industry peers often describe her as fearless, grounded, and ahead of her time. She's worked across genres, generations, and audiences, bridging the gap between music and cinema with effortless grace. And as the entertainment world continues to evolve, Hailee's influence lingers in the new wave of multi-hyphenate artists, singers who act, actors who write, and creators who refuse to be boxed in. Because her true legacy isn't measured in awards or followers, but in the simple truth she's lived by since the beginning. You can chase your dream and still stay true to yourself. As the years passed, Hailee learned that success wasn't measured in applause, but in peace. After a decade in the spotlight, she began choosing stillness over noise. She spent more time with family, close friends, and the small circle that reminded her of home. She rediscovered the beauty of normal things. Early mornings, long drives, laughter without cameras. In interviews, her words grew quieter but deeper. "You don't have to be loud to be heard," she said, a line that could have come straight from one of her songs. She started writing more for herself than for charts. Her music became honest, stripped of perfection. The sound of someone who's lived, fallen, healed, and learned to love again. Beyond the stage, she used her platform to support young women, speaking about self-worth, mental health, and the power of saying no. Not as a celebrity preaching lessons, but as a person still learning them. Hailee's journey taught her that growth doesn't always look like success. Sometimes it looks like walking away. Sometimes it sounds like silence. And sometimes it feels like coming home to yourself. Through it all, she never stopped creating. Not for fame, not for validation, but because art, in every form, was how she breathed. The lights fade, the applause quiets, and standing in that stillness is Hailee Steinfeld. No longer the prodigy, no longer the headline. Just a woman who found her truth through every rise and every fall. Her journey was never about fame. It was about voice. The courage to use it when others told her to stay quiet, and the grace to listen when the world grew too loud. She began as a girl trying to prove she belonged. She became an artist who needed no permission, and somewhere between the stages, the scripts, and the songs, she learned that the most powerful stories aren't written. They're lived, today. Her voice echoes not in the noise of Hollywood, but in the quiet strength of those she's inspired. A generation that believes, like she did, that vulnerability is power, and that authenticity is art. Narrator's closing line: soft, emotional. In a world that tried to define her, Hailee Steinfeld chose to define herself. Not by fame, not by fear, but by the song only she could sing.